I wanted to thank you all for your voices because over the past 3 years, it's been difficult for me to maintain my voice because the law specifically, there's this idea of objectivity. And we sit in these classrooms and we talk about, we don't talk about these things actually. We talk about the rules, but we don't talk about the implications of the rules. And I've been struggling because I went to law school for the opposite of that because I wanted to be a voice. And I found that over the past 3 years that I've been fighting to maintain my voice. So just coming here, I felt like I was fed again and listening to you guys speak. So I want to thank you for that. And for my question specifically, Emmanuel's piece, the notion that power concedes nothing without a demand. Again, as a law student, I'm all about the protests and all of that, but I've been trying to figure out how do we demand strategically, because so many people are now tired of hearing us. They have the "I can breathe" shirts, and they're just like, why are we complaining? There's police officers. I've been arguing on Facebook with black police officers who are brainwashed, who are just like, if black people would stop killing each other, this would stop happening. So how do we not just get lost in the rhetoric, and how do we make sure that we demand strategically? What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, from my perspective, and I'll just say that I feel highly underqualified to answer that question. And part of that is because this movement is so massive and the issues that have oppressed us are so massive that not one organization and not one person can have a fix-all, and can even have a strategy that would be implemented, because you don't know the problems of each specific community. We know that there are things that target us nationwide, and I feel like finding those places in which we can be involved in all fronts. So teaching, the educators who, without them, we wouldn't be up here. Without having educators, without having parents, without having mentors, I feel like I could speak for y'all, even though I may not know y'all as well as I do everyone. But I feel like we've had mentors, we've had artists, but also economic pressure, and supporting black businesses. And just if I know, right, I see Ujiji, so I have to plug, there are so many artists, entrepreneurs who are coming up with ideas to support black businesses. And she has a great one, Buy Black, right? An app, which I feel like we have to support all of our friends, all of our entrepreneurs, all of our communities financially. If we're not putting our money where it needs to be, we're only continuing to sustain the system that's already in place. So just from my humble opinion, I think education is one in which we have been in expressing ourselves through the arts, but definitely making that transition economically so that we can survive as communities.
I also think that in terms of like protest and die-ins and all the thing and marches, I think that it's essentially a cry for help. We're asking policymakers and people who know the law to come and teach us other ways, because throughout history, that's what's been working, and so we can only follow other people's lead. And so I definitely do think that, just protesting isn't enough, but it is something. And I think people need to feel like you're out here doing something. You can't just be at your house like, oh, well, that's not gonna do anything either. So yeah, we're out in these streets, and like, that's a huge argument. People are always like, well, what are the protests, what is that gonna do? Or what is shutting down a store gonna do? But it brings that to the conversation. And so now we're talking about it. And then we're in community so everybody can, say, oh, well, that's not gonna work, but this might work. And that's what we need. We need dialogue. We need conversations. We need to know that there are people out there hurting and that they also want us to change. And so where it's a call for help. Like, we need everybody to tell us their ideas from 0 to 100, like basic stuff, for real quick. Like the most basic idea to the more like elaborate one, but we need everybody.
Yeah, is this on? Yes. It's on? Okay, great. That's good. You can hear me. No, but in terms of protesting and things like that, like I have to be honest. Like I just felt tired. You know, I feel like a lot of people in this room, I feel like my black rage was at like an all-time high. Like I go to school in Wisconsin, so it's like 2 black people there, and it was just a lot, right? So, so I felt kind of guilty and bad that I didn't want to like come out of my house for like weeks, right? I didn't want to protest with people who looked like me. I didn't want to talk to anybody because I just felt so tired. But just what Vanessa was saying, it really is important. Just talking about Wisconsin. So essentially, a protest was organized and then we shut down College Library, which is the biggest library on campus, right? And it was during finals week. And it's interesting to check in with yourself about how you feel about protesting, but then it's even more interesting, right, to like think about the other people who are not like about it at all. So, you know, you're on like Facebook and all these people are like, why would you do this during finals week? Like, my grades matter. What is this Black Lives Matter? You know what I'm saying? But and that kind of stuff like fuels your rage just listening to the reactions. But there's something about walking into something with people who look like you and people who are on the same side as you, not necessarily like looking like you, but you have allies and things like that. That is so powerful, because even like doing that die-in at College Library, like I'm a very emotional person usually, but I think it was very emotional just like laying down on the ground and watching, you know, these white girls and white boys like with their like calculus books and like biochem things like literally walking over my body, and that kind of like wakes you up. So like I understand like there may be people who are sitting down, it's like, dang, like I don't know like how I feel about being out there like that, like I don't know where I fit in all of this. Just challenge yourself one time, take somebody who you love, somebody who you trust, and do something. Like it really does like put you in a different place. So.
Right now, where I am in my life right now, I feel like my group of friends, a lot of my friends aren't in school right now. They're taking breaks or, you know, whatever. And school for me, at least college anyway, I'm not going to say all school, but college anyway has been very diverse as far as, like, I learned a lot about people. And I've been able to meet people, like-minded people, and it's been amazing. And it's got me to go to my first symphony, and it's got me to, you know, experience all these things that a whole world that was, you know, just a train ride away that I didn't know existed, and that was because of college. But for my friends right now, a lot of them aren't in college. So basically my question is like, or maybe some tips or hints, maybe like, I know I'm not the only one who's ever been through this. Like, I feel like I'm the only one right now out of my group of friends that are kind of like seeing another world. But I feel like a lot of my friends right now are trapped in like a matrix type like syndrome where it's like it's a loop and they don't realize it's even a loop. But these are people I love so much, you know what I mean? Like I love them a lot. So like for me to like separate myself, I kind of feel bad, you know, because, you know, these are people I grew up with and I love them so much. So it's kind of like sometimes I find myself restricting myself just to stay with them, you know. But like basically my question is like, do you have a tip or something? Because I can't make them go to school to meet the people I met. I can't make them do certain things, and you know, I kind of just don't want to leave them yet. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of want them to see another side.
What's important is one, just reminding them that you're no different, and that has always been extremely important. Just reminding them that y'all are still the homies, that you're no different, but also continue to inspire them that they don't necessarily have to continue to inspire them and let them grow and come with you. I was a college dropout homeless, and these dudes took me into their crib straight up and was just like, yo, and just opened my mind and loved on me and showed me grace and showed me like what it meant to like critically think, and I think that's extremely important, like bringing them in to your world and letting your world do its work and do its justice. I mean, I have friends who straight up like, I'm talking about like jail for attempted murder, like straight up thugs, homies come. I'm like, yo, come to the poetry event. I'm like, nah, I ain't with that. I'm like, yo, come through and leave and be like, yo, my dude, your word of mine is something and I'm watching Josh, and you know what I mean, quoting Josh's poems to me, like, yo, you ever heard this poem? I said, yeah, he's my best friend. You know what I mean? So like, don't think that the work in the areas that you are in can't affect and radically shape the foundations of your heart. Like, it can. It truly can.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Can I also just say that the system is also designed to separate us.
Yeah.
like in terms of, in every sense of the word, in terms of class, in terms of color, in terms of education, absolutely in every way. Like, and so I think that it's important, one, to acknowledge that and understand that there's always going to be, yeah, but this is what makes you different from me, or this is why you don't get it. Like, in terms of people of color across the board, I'm talking Latin, I'm talking Asian, like absolutely people of color in general. And so once you can start those kind of conversations, I also think that your friend circle would also like jump on, because they would get it, you know, like for my own personal experience, like I'm very, like I went to all the schools, you know, but I'm also the only one in my family who's graduated college, who's getting a doctorate. My dad never did that, he's still in Cuba. Like none of my family has done that either, you know, and so when I go home, and I'm also the lightest one in my family, so when I go home, it's like, yeah, she's so smart, but Vanessa always knows everything, oh, she got light eyes, blah, blah. But I'm like, no. I'm in a school with all white people who don't think I'm white, but don't treat me like I'm white. But then you think that, you know, and so that separates us, and then education separates us, and like, so you just gotta know, like, it's just designed to separate us, you know, and so there's always gonna be a this is that.
And they need you because you speak their language.
I was just thinking when you talked about graduating from college and making money, and that being like, as an African, like my parents have always like ingrained that into my life, and like I've always separated myself from people in my neighborhood. I live a block away, actually, across the street. Yes, represent. I live a block away, and I've always separated myself from people in my neighborhood, saying that here's who I am, here's where everybody else is. And it's like huge struggle trying to figure that out, especially at Williams, where like everybody's white, and I'm on the men's crew team, so everybody's white and male. So like patriarchy, white supremacy is very real, very real. So like being around people, I just don't know where my place is, and especially I'm trying to like enlighten everybody. Like, let's all talk about race right now. And I feel like people who care, but people who don't care will go out of their way to make you seem stupid. So I don't know, like, and a lot of what you guys were talking about just brought that up intensely, but how do I, as a black female on a 98% white male team, enlighten people who I don't think give a shit about my existence and pretend to? So just comment on if you have any, all of you guys.
So I'm the only black person in my entire master's program, right? The entirety of it. It actually drives me crazy because I'm in my third year, and I swear to God, my first year I told them, if you don't bring me some black people, I'm leaving. I don't understand what happened. I don't get it. But one of the things that has become super important for me over the years is being very clear about the fact that it is not my job, and I'm gonna speak to it, it's not your job to do the educating, right? You go to a school, like Williams is like, I'm pretty sure it's built on some plantations, right? So we're just gonna put that there, right? Like, just gonna leave that there. It is the job of the administration and of the people who brought you there to do their bidding, to do that education, right? So you don't have to put yourself in these, like, I've literally come to a point where I'm just like, I'm dead not arguing with white people no more. What are we arguing about? Literally, you know what I mean? I think it's okay to be in a position where you just say, I'm not, what do I look like arguing with you? Actually sit down, and that's it, and move on.
I feel that sentiment deeply, because I too went to a PWI. I say pat yourself on the back for choosing to have the conversation, because sometimes you can't see how your words are changing somebody right in front of your face, and you might never see it the whole time you know these people. You might go on, leave the crew team, go about your business, make your money, and never see those people again. But you never know if something you said will change something inside of them. They'll have a different experience sometime later in their life and say, hey, something about what just happened to me is bringing out something that I heard before. You never know, so it's tough to have the conversation, but pat yourself on the back for having a conversation.
But I had the mind in the frame of all the protests, and we had Madiba That's Nelson Mandela, and we had the Malcolms, and we had the Martins. Like, if we could talk about, like, and one of the poems talked about ownership. The first poem, the quote was talking about ownership as a poet, as a person. Like, how do we as Black people take ownership for what we like, for the progression, and how could we truly move forward as we keep hitting these glass ceilings? And this energy is so crazy right now. What can we do with it to break through it? And how do you take ownership for yourself and because we do have brothers and sisters that look up to us that don't know nothing about Trayvon Martin yet, and don't know nothing about anybody else that's coming. So how we walk is gonna change how they walk. So how can, like, let's just, like, our ownership for ourselves, forget the white people, because not all I may get beat up after this, but not all white people are bad. You know what I mean? So like how, like, within ourselves and within our own community, we have to take more ownership. Can we?
So ownership for me means and constantly reminds me that it's not about me. And I think that for me is what pushes me every single day. I mean, just to think that, I mean, you know, these poems, these monologues, these songs, all of these are gifts. You know, I don't, any of us, we're not, we're not awarded this, but we're supposed to use this to maximize how we give love to the world. So for me, ownership, how to maximize ownership is to continue to give it away. Is to continue to serve people. Is continue to love people. Is to take that dominion and that power and that leadership and that everything that you have and use it in service for someone who is not me. I think that is, for me, is what taking ownership and power and love for me means. Is to serve other people. It's to serve other people.
I mean, please. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a complicated question in part because I think we have to think about what our investment in something like ownership is. Like when we have collectivity and we have community, and even the figures you mentioned, right? It makes sense because they're all like canonical. Like that's like the Mount Rushmore of like Black leaders, right? But they're also all like dudes, right? They're like cis dudes. And what I'm thankful for, especially in this, oh, thank you. What I'm especially thankful for in this iteration of the Black freedom movement, right, is that it's far more decentralized, right? So I'm really actually thankful for the relative absence of a charismatic male leader in what's happening now, right? Having folks who are thinking critically about gender, class, and sexuality, right? So it's an iteration of the Black freedom movement that's led primarily by poor and working class people. Women are at the front, both in terms of like the physical people marching, right? So having been to marches, it's primarily Black women that are not just doing the intellectual labor of giving us the very vocabulary for the movement, but they're also like carrying it through. And so every time we talk about Blackness, I always want to remind us that we have so much here already. And I think we inherit so much pathology that I think we fear that we have nothing, but we have like everything. Like I think even the resources that, even let's just think, right, about the poems that you heard today, but the resources that produce a tradition of people that were legally barred from being able to read and write, right? That the fact, it was illegal for us to even gather in groups this large, right? So to think about the fact that an amazing literary tradition was produced out of those material conditions is singular. It's a singular event in the world. And I think that's incredible. I don't know. I wake up every day and I'm just amazed by Black folk. Because you can't outdo them, right? Like I read Phyllis Wheatley and I think this is amazing. This is amazing that someone produced this from the conditions of chattel slavery, right? So whenever we're talking about ownership, we need to think about where do we inherit that language from? And why do we desire that? I love what you said about thinking about whiteness and like forget about that. I want to echo that. Like white supremacy, those aesthetics, even that language, I don't want it. I don't need it. I was raised by like folks that were like working class and grew up in poverty, dude. So what I understand is worth, value, leadership, it has no root in like being elevated or wealthy or like any of this stuff that we're taught in our schools, right? Our predominantly white institutions and even our predominantly Black institutions, right? That are historically conservative and founded with white money, right? So all I would say is that we have so much here of what we need. That's it.
In some ways, this question has been answered already, but not really specifically to what I want to ask. this is important. All of it is important, and I feel like all of it should be taught, and we've already established that. But if you're in a second grade class, how exactly do you teach the kids about this? You know, without getting into the gory details, but while still being candid, how do you teach this to children to make them aware, to make them intelligent, to make them, you know, thoughtful? That kind of thing. How do you teach it to the children?
We've been socialized to believe that education is a very specific set of things, of which we do not generally include spaces like this, shows like this, protests like this, conversations like this. We enter spaces like schools, which are really regimented, right? That you're in you go to school with a bunch of kids who live around you, who are your same age, and you literally increase every year like a line, like a factory line, right? And if you study that, you can go as far back as the Industrial Revolution and how there are really kind of historical facts for why this kind of thing happens. What our job and what your job and what everybody in this space and in this room's job is to remember on a daily basis that education is not limited to the classroom. It's not limited to the books. It is not limited to a specific type of conversation or dialogue that is had anywhere, right? That they can define that for themselves, and to encourage that. Let them learn, you know what I mean? Like let them think and redefine learning on their own behalves. Josh talks about all the time about how in his classroom he's gonna have his kids take off their shoes and how they're gonna just kind of chill and hang out and talk about their lives, right? So that's one example. That's one fantastic example of a way to kind of encourage that. But you can have your own, and to create that and to be strong behind that, because remember, they're going to get their own education when they leave you, right? So they're gonna be in their homes, and then they're going to have another socialized education by their neighborhood, and then by the traditionally racist and capitalist and all these institutions that will be bombarding them every single day with what it means to learn and what it will be like, or what they will be like when they have learned something, right? And it's our job to remind them and to tell them that one, they're valuable and worthwhile as they are right now, and two, that whatever way they want to learn, that they can.
I have a question, because yesterday I was sitting in a foster home in Philly, and I did not know how to engage with the kids there. I couldn't engage with them to the point that they realized this movement, this Black Lives Matters, Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, Antonio, like they all mattered, and I couldn't figure out how to start the conversation with them, because to them their reality wasn't right there on TV. It was maybe 2 or 3 steps removed. It was there some days, but for the most part, they were battling other realities, and I was trying to get them into an enlightened conversation when they didn't necessarily have the vocabulary that they felt I had. Like, oh, you Miss Columbia, like you can't come over here with your definitions and your vocabulary. Like I can't always reach them, but I ask you guys, because you guys all are people I look up to, and you've all successfully really touched young lives, but also young lives that have been both enlightened and at times ignorant. And I really ask you guys how to complicate the narrative for people who don't have the vocabulary like we have, or aren't in the studio, or aren't as open to the idea that they, in fact, themselves matter.
I mean, because part of the first thing that strikes me is those students, they seem to have actually a more robust vocabulary than many people for like the daily conditions of Black life, right? Because it sounds like part of what the young people are saying is more of us are dying from a lack of health care than from police violence, right? That like, it seems like what gets overlooked a lot, especially in media representation, is that the vast majority of Black folk are dying from lack of access to basic amenities, right? That they should have as citizens. And in some ways, it seems like the media relies on certain kind, that's a timer. The media relies on putting this sort of violence in front of us, but obscuring those other kinds of violence, right? So what I would say is linger.
I wanted to know, thank you very much. How do you, I understand that Kimon had said before that it's not our job to educate an institution. It's the actual institution's job to educate. But I feel that it's an obligation for me to continue the conversation of education. I'm raising my niece and my 2 nephews who, like the previous young lady had said, had an experience where he's walking down the street, going to the store, and 30 minutes pass by, he's not home yet. And it's because somebody stopped him and said, "Why are you on my property? Get off my property, I'm about to call the police. What are you doing here?" And we continue to drop the N-word. How do I continue this conversation? We've done the dyings, we've done the protests, and I feel as if that in this institution that I attend, that people are starting to get discouraged. People are more worried about finals. People are more worried about, as student workers, are we going to lose our jobs? And we're all being college students, we know that times is hard. We need these jobs. So how do we continue this conversation in a peaceful manner where it doesn't obstruct the day-to-day, and how do we get our voices heard in that?
I do think that it's our responsibility to educate our communities. And I want to say that your community is wherever you decide that your community is, right? So you could be the only black person in a white place and feel like these are my people and there's something about me that they don't get, right? So I need to do that work. But outside of even the conversation about whiteness, right? Like, it's complicated because I want us to move, I guess what I keep trying to say to my friends and some of my students is I want us to move away from how we consume whiteness, right? And how the consumption of whiteness affects our ability to mobilize and organize and et cetera, right? I don't know if things are going to get better because white people start to be nicer or because blackness is humanized. I don't know that that's true, right? In my opinion, I only think that things are going to happen through actual policy change. So it's about figuring out in your head where you think that turn is going to come from, where you think that change is going to come from. If you don't think protests are worth your time, that's fine, right? To be honest, a form of protest is you waking up in the morning and being the whole world is on fire, but I'm about to murk this exam though. I'm about to hit that, right? Just like waking up in the morning is a form of protest, right? Walking is a form of protest. Going outside and being in your black body and being unafraid is a form of protest, right? And if you can teach your nephews and your sons and your kids and your students just that their existence is a protest, right? And teach them what they're protesting, then you've already done half the work.
You have to survive, right? Because there's no movement if there's no one to lead it. So you have to take care of yourself. If you need to keep that job, if you need to pass those classes, you need to do it. You can't stop living for this, because that's what they want you to do.
Hi, Hazel. I'm actually a student of Emmanuel. I don't know if you remember me from STEP, but I So I just wanted to thank you guys because I came here with my last $20. I was a college student. I'm a freshman in college. I'm struggling. I'm really out here. I'm from the Bronx, man. But I just wanted to let you guys know why I guess it was important for me to come to this with my last $20. 2 years ago, my brother, I have two older brothers. Obviously, they're both African American. So it makes sense.
Not that clear always.
No.
Just sometimes it gets a little confusing.
So we were in the house and my mom had sent my middle brother out to go get some milk. It was 9 o'clock, so it was pretty dark, but it's the bodega across the street, and he left and he didn't come back for 2 or 3 hours. And when he came back, he was all shaken up and everything. And we were asking what was going on, and they had stopped and frisked him for over an hour. They had held him there, we didn't know what had happened to him. He could have been gone for all we knew. The same thing happened to him a couple years later, where they took him downtown and a whole bunch of other stuff. So for me, I usually look out of my window every morning and I always get so scared because I feel the Bronx or that view is the only view I'm ever gonna have. And I just want you guys to thank you because I know that's not the only view that I have. I know that there are people out there that know that I'm here, and I know that you guys are here, and I know that you guys matter too, and I love you all. I really do. Relevant for the whole Black Lives Matter thing. I really as a young person, I haven't been to a protest or anything. I've really been struggling with that, only because I guess my whole view is that I'm kind of a supporter of the All Lives Matter thing, just in terms of I think it's really important for all of us. Or I've been really stuck about writing. you always told us to write, but like I haven't been writing as much. And I think I'm gonna start writing again because our stories, if we don't write, if we don't have written things about our like history, like it won't go down. Like the reason why they teach it in textbooks or whatever is because somebody wrote it down. So like I just want to encourage you guys, like I'm gonna start writing as soon as I get home. So I want you guys to write too, and I want to hear your stories because if we listen to each other, like we know we're here, and we know that we're going somewhere. And I think that's what's more. I think that's the most important thing. Like to keep it pushing, you know. Pushing it.